Hello everyone, welcome to Maximum Attack Rallying and to this rather unusual setting of a hotel room in Dubai. It's weird to find yourself outside of the UK as I am right now. It had been pretty much I think a year to the day since I travelled anywhere, and here I am. It's not rally related I'm afraid, but there we go. I'm thinking about it now with some hindsight. I probably could have gone to the beach or something and done this, couldn't I? You could have seen some sunshine and all that. It's actually dark because it's evening here, but if I'd been better prepared I could have gone to the beach or something and done this, but we're in a hotel room with a sofa, so we can't complain, can we? Main topic for this week's video is Monte Carlo. There are some little things I want to touch on first. First is my cool t-shirt which I'm wearing. The lovely 306 Maxi t-shirt from Miles and Miles. If you want this t-shirt, not this t-shirt, I'm wearing it, you don't want my old clothes, that would be weird. If you want one like it, hit the link in my bio up there somewhere and use Maximum Attack Rallying and you get 5% off. And have a look, they've got lots of cool car related things, not just rallying. It's quite interesting wearing this t-shirt. I was walking around today and getting some weird looks because I don't think anyone in Dubai knows what a 306 Maxi actually is. I think, you know, if it was a Lamborghini, I think they would get it. Old Peugeot rally car, no. I think people just think I'm weird, even more than usual. Anyway, next topic on the list. Yes, next week's video, we're jumping ahead a little bit here, but Hugh Chambers, the CEO of Motorsport UK, has asked in the latest issue of Revolution, their monthly magazine, for people's opinion on the future of rallying in the UK, which is a subject I am incredibly passionate about, as you may well know, having watched some of my other videos. So they want feedback and want to know what people think the future should look like of our sport, especially now that we have lost our round of the WRC. So for next week's video, I want to talk about that. So I want you to tell me what to talk about. So if you've got any thoughts on what we should do, put them down there in the comments and maybe I'll talk about it. So if you've got a suggestion, tell me and I'd like to talk about it. If you've got a question, ask me and I'll try and answer it. So I'd like to hear what you think we should do and I'll tell you what I think we should do. And I think it's an interesting topic, isn't it? With this pause, this enforced break that we've got because of coronavirus, I think now is the time, isn't it, to really reflect and think about what's good and what's bad in our sport and think about what we could be doing better to make it more sustainable and exciting and sellable, I suppose. So if you've got any thoughts, let me know. I'd love to see them and I'll talk about them next week. So yeah, I think that's the housekeeping out of the way. We'll deal with that later. I will put some more stuff up about it. Sometime. Anyway, Monte Carlo, let's talk about that because I'm a little bit late to the party, but I did want to talk about it. I'm not going to tell you who won because I think by now you probably already know who won, but there's a few little bits and pieces I want to pick up on. On the subject of who won, I will just say, having said I wasn't going to talk about who won, I think we have to mention Ogier's performance because it was, I think, an amazing drive. I mean, following his brake issues on the first couple of stages, to show the level of performance that he was, to be as fast as he was compared to some of the other drivers was very, very impressive. He had a puncture which could have thrown it away, but it just never looked in doubt, did it? He never looked like finishing anywhere other than in first place. He was breathtaking, and to score his 8th win in Monte Carlo, 50th in his career, it was something, wasn't it? The car is good, but Ogier in Monte Carlo is just something else. He grew up in that region. He's from Gap, so his local knowledge is unrivaled, but his abilities on those roads and in those conditions are just phenomenal. So that was really impressive. I think other performances worth picking up on. I thought Toyota generally obviously had a brilliant event. Katsuta and Rovanperä were good considering their relative lack of experience. I think Katsuta is coming on quite well now, actually. Evans was second and I would say probably the second best driver, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean for him to be the second best driver, given some of his opposition, I think was, it's just a demonstration that he is absolutely the real deal now. He is every bit the contender. So for him to finish second was very, very impressive, especially when you consider the fact that he didn't actually look very happy all weekend. He looked a bit off the pace and he looked a bit uncomfortable in the car. So to finish second in the way that he did, for me, I think was very, very impressive indeed. And he has to be, in my view, the main contender for the championship outside of Ogier. So I thought that was very good. Contrast, especially with the other teams. So Hyundai, the positive for them was undoubtedly Neuville, especially given the week that he had running up to the rally. To have that late co-driver change, to have not even sat in the car together prior to the first stage, because there was no shakedown. I think for them to go on and finish third was really something. That was a very, very good result. How long that partnership lasts for remains to be seen. They seem to be kind of doing it on a rally by rally basis. I believe they will be together for the next round, but I thought that was a really good performance. And obviously, beyond what the other two cars achieved, Sordo looked a little bit out of sorts, had a few issues, and just didn't seem that happy in the car. Tänak, again, a retirement. Slightly controversial in terms of the penalty that he received, which has had a little bit of negative feedback, including from the man himself. My feeling on this is that the penalty was absolutely justified. I know some people have said that it wasn't an issue, it's not a big deal, but I think you have to take a bit of a step back in this instance and say that from the outside, as if you were someone who did not like rallying, if you lived in that area of southern France or Monaco and didn't like the rally going near your house and didn't like all the disruption, and you see some bloke driving a car on 3 tyres, well, that's not going to look very good, is it? And had there been an incident, had he got crashed, which I know is pretty unlikely, he could have hit someone else and injured a member of the public. And I think for me that that justifies every bit what penalty was imposed. You also have to remember that it wasn't actually a penalty because it was suspended. So yes, he could face a ban from an event, but only if he repeats what he did, and he's not going to do that, is he now? He'll have learned that lesson, so he's not really had to face any consequences. But I just think we have to be very mindful of what people think of what we're doing nowadays. Unfortunately, the worm is turning against the car and against motorsport. We're not as popular as we once were, and we have to be mindful of what other people think. So unfortunately, as much as we like the stories of old people driving cars on 3 wheels with bits falling off them just to make it to the next stage, we don't live in that world anymore, and we can't afford that negative publicity. So for me, that penalty was justified. And while I understand the comparisons to Ogier and others not having their helmets done up, ultimately, if they'd gone off, they would have hurt themselves and not anyone else. Whereas with the car issue, if you're driving on the public road, you can potentially hurt someone else, and that is a big no-no. So I don't see a big issue with that penalty, especially given that he doesn't have to serve it unless he does it again. So I think for me, that's just case closed. I think he realises that it's case closed. He just has to take it on the chin and move on from it. We don't live in the world where you can just do what you want anymore. More's the pity. So I don't think the criticism of that penalty is justified. Lastly, in terms of results, what do you say about M Sport? It was a terrible event, wasn't it, for M Sport? Really terrible. Greensmith was just not at the races. He wasn't happy in the car. He wasn't driving well, as he said himself, and it just wasn't working. So that was a shame. But I think you have to remember his relative lack of experience. If you look at where some of the other drivers were, having not done very many events, I think you have to give them a bit of time. We have to remember the situation that M Sport are in. They can't afford to pay a Neuville or a Tänak or an Ogier to come in and drive that car for them. So it's a shame, but that is the position that that team is in. Suninen, I think, maybe being a little bit ambitious, obviously going very fast. Was that the right approach to that event? For the team, no. For him, trying to prove himself, maybe. But I think, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it in sport. It's just depressing, isn't it, after where they were a couple of years ago. So let's move on from that. Let's move on. Anyway, last few minutes, I just want to touch on a couple of media-related things. Weirdly, I'm going to plug another rally content platform, dirtfish.com. I shouldn't really do that, should I? They should be plugging me. I would urge you to have a look at their website because they are now running a column from Jari Matti Latvala. The reason I think you should read that is because I love Jari Matti Latvala, and one of the things I was excited about, should he be made Toyota team principal, which he was after all of this, is the fact that he very much wears his heart on his sleeve. He says what he thinks, says what he feels, and I thought he might really bring something interesting to that team boss dynamic. And it seems from his first column, which is now on dirtfish.com, that he is kind of doing that. And he was being quite honest about his feelings before the start of the rally and seeing the other drivers preparing and how kind of jealous he was, and then how the excitement of seeing the team being successful. So that's really interesting. I think we find ourselves in a really good position having Jari Matti as one team boss and Andrea Adamo as another, because I think we've got two quite big characters there, albeit in slightly different ways, but I think that adds some, hopefully at least will add some emotion and some drama to that side of it, rather than the sort of rigid corporate thing that we can sometimes be very guilty of in the motorsport media world. So that's very good. Last thing, a couple of minutes to go, was Mads Ostberg, who, if you watched all live, was a member of the commentary team. Lots of people have had lots of good things to say about this, and I'm going to also say some good things about it because I have been banging the drum for years, several years now, about how rally coverage, WRC coverage, needs the input of a driver. If you look at any other sport, motorsport and others, the dynamic that you tend to have in the coverage is that you'll have a TV presenter who kind of gives you the story, but they will work with an ex-professional, so it might be an ex-football player on Match of the Day or whatever it is, or Sky Sports. You have that dynamic, but I think rallying's really been lacking that, and I think seeing Mads in that role, co-commentating, it showed how much we need it. It showed how much value there is in having someone who's got experience of a current World Rally car, got experience of an R5 car, got experience of the championship. He could give us insight that no professional presenter could, that someone like me couldn't, that even a driver who hasn't driven a car for 10 years couldn't give. I think having that experience of his was brilliant, really good on all live. I hope, I'm not going to get to see the UK TV coverage, but I really hope that some of his insight appears in the UK TV coverage or global TV coverage. But I think what we also need to be working towards, and we're not unfortunately going to have Mads for every rally because he's going to be driving still, I would urge broadcasters to have as much input from that driver, an analysis. If you're analysing a stage and how two different drivers have performed on a stage, in much the same way as if you're analysing a football match, that's where you need the ex-driver, the current driver, to be giving his insight, saying why someone took a certain line, why someone chose a certain tyre, where things may have gone wrong. That is really what the coverage has been lacking for me. So having Mads there for Monty was brilliant. We need more of it, more of him, hopefully, if he can, and more of other drivers. There are drivers out there that could do that job, for sure, because that adds depth to the coverage. So I thought it was a really positive move, a much needed positive move, probably a little bit later than it should have been, but there we are. So yeah, that was really good. I'm pleased that that's happened, and I hope it continues to happen. So I think that's it, isn't it? I think that's it for this week. We're almost out of time. So thanks for watching. Please remember to comment on the rally future thing below, because I'd love to hear what you think. And I will talk about that in the next video. Please like and subscribe and all that rubbish as always, because I need validation through the internet. But thanks for watching, and I will catch you again very, very soon.